It's computer, yeah. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is another episode of the Men Talk About podcast. This is your host, Paul Newell, and I am excited, as always. Every time I get on these podcasts, I'm excited because I know what's coming. Well, at least I know the guest that's here. And today I have Jason Holzer out of Kansas City, Missouri. And I am excited to have him here for several reasons. First of all, I'm excited to have him here because we had a conversation recently, actually yesterday, and we became connected through our mutual contact, Scott Mason. And I really, after talking to Jason, I knew after about like 5-10 minutes talking to this dude, like I wanted to have him on this podcast to talk about what he does and who he is and what he's bringing out into the world. And after hearing a little bit of his story and his why, I'm excited and ecstatic for you all to hear this as well. So Jason here, we have Jason. He's a certified thought coach. He is a mental fitness guide for athletes, and he is a post-traumatic growth storyteller, which we're going to dive into a little bit because there's some goodness to that. So Jason, you want to say some words as we welcome you to the podcast, my friend?
Yeah, Paul, what's good, man? So excited to be on here today and, really just allowing the conversation to really drop those, awesome knowledge points that we talked about yesterday that just came naturally from what you and I have been studying and learning. And I think the best thing we can do is share what we've learned to other people to help others as much as possible.
Shay, yeah, man. Thank you for that and welcome. And when I say a Shay, for people that are hearing this, basically it's a Yoruba term, African term for meaning blessings and power to your words, almost as if it's saying, and so it is. So it is for this podcast. And Jason, as you came in, one of the things that I have yet to mention that you do, which I hold in high regard, is that you're a teacher. And I've always, I don't know, it's a thing I always see teachers as people with a tremendous amount of heart, patience, skill, situational and emotional awareness and intelligence. And I'm curious for you, right? We're just gonna dive right in. So I'm curious for you, Jason, because I know you're doing you're spinning a couple different plates right now. So as a teacher, and especially going back into a school year coming up, what are some of the key takeaways or key things that are activating in you now as we go into this new school year under these conditions of COVID and masks and dis-ease?
Yeah, I almost feel like a first-year teacher again in a lot of ways. I don't know what to expect. I don't know how things are going to go. I don't know, how often we're going to be in school, maybe out of school, and really the thing that I can think of is the only thing I can control is myself. Am I prepared? Am I, do I have social distance activities and I teach PE, so it's like, how do I create safe activities? And so it really like sparks creativity within you, because like you got to really think outside of the box, because a lot of things that I used to that kids love, like, is that going to be the safest activity for them? So it's reevaluating a lot of what you do. And I'm taking this as an opportunity for growth. Like, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be different than anything that I've experienced before in my previous 10 years of teaching. But, I think it's good for kids to be in school as safe as possible if we can, just from a social aspect.
Thank you for that, man. It's interesting that you mentioned that. What I'm hearing you say is it's like you're a beginner again. You're starting over with this uncertainty. And as I was thinking about that question, knowing we were going to be on the podcast, it led me to one of the things that you're doing as far as the post-traumatic growth, being a post-traumatic growth storyteller. And I'm curious, from your perspective, with everything that is going on, with this uncertainty that we're learning to navigate, how do you see? Well, what are the ways you see this situation as traumatic, and what are the ways that you see that there can be growth from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, trauma in a lot of ways is it's an experience. It's something that where your life has, completely altered, like on a dime. It's something that, it's either a great loss, or you know, it's something that will forever change your life moving forward. And for me, whenever I experienced trauma, I lost my dad to suicide whenever I was 17. So COVID was was kind of easier for me to flip the script, because I'd already done it. I'd already been there whenever I was a 17-year-old, and I figured it out then. So I was like, well, I can do this again. My family's still healthy,
Mm,
and
right.
I have all the people I love with me still. It wasn't like I lost somebody. I just lost the way I did things. So I think from a growth standpoint, like, getting uncomfortable, like, and I think it's setting goals too. I think it's what do you really want, getting clear on the things that you want in life, because sometimes, whether it's maybe a job loss, or it's something like that, sometimes those things maybe happen, and you can have the perspective of like, oh, that's traumatic, or oh, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But some people find that that's the best thing that's ever happened to them, because they hated what they were doing anyways. So now they get a chance to maybe reinvent themselves, and they were just waiting for something to come along for them to have to step into that space.
Yeah, dude, I laugh because I look at it, I look at it from that perspective, right? I see it as like, yo, this is an opportunity. Like, oh, listen, whatever left, like, I really wasn't digging it anyway. And I also see the opposite end, where people are like freaking out. They're trying to hold on to something that was,
Hmm.
um, and are resistant, in my judgment, of embracing what is possible, like what's here. And you said something that is so key: getting clear, getting clear on what's possible. And this brings me to another thing that you're doing, because speaking of getting clear and getting uncomfortable, and it's something we started talking about yesterday, from with more along your hat as the certified thought. I call it the coach guide. Like, getting uncomfortable and getting clear. How much of that would you say can be cleaned up with thought, and how much of that is cleaned up with action?
Well, I think it's thought first, because thought
Mhm.
leads to emotions, emotions lead to actions, actions lead to reactions. So, we talked about yesterday, I remember too, sometimes it's not doing what you want to do, what you think you want to do, but it's doing what resonates with you. And that goes back to, what did you love? What was your highest of highs? What did you love to do? What felt free and easy to you whenever you were a kid? And then on the
Mm,
opposite side of that, what's your biggest pain moment? What's the things that really, like for me, it was losing my dad to suicide. So now I'm advocate for suicide prevention, post traumatic growth, healing yourself after losing somebody. Like, those are the things that, what resonate with you, because you've experienced the best of times and you've experienced the worst of times. And that kind of
right.
gives you a guide on your goals. Like, what do I want to do? And so now I'm like, I've written a book, and I'm an Amazon bestselling author on my book about my story about losing my dad to suicide. I'm creating a online program that helps kids develop essential life skills through sports, because again, sports was something I loved as a kid. So I've looked back and I was like, what were the two things? Not the things in the middle, because you really tend to get apathetic on those times that, like, you're just living life and it's kind of average. But again,
Right.
really your best moments and your lowest moments, and using those as trigger points to help you find your purpose, passion, and the drive to, find your impact.
Man, it's like you have, what I'm hearing you say, it's like there's guideposts, where it's like it's either I could come from or I could go towards. Um, Question for you, like, can you let the listeners know what's the name of your book? If they
Yeah.
can go check that out, pick it up.
It's called Shattered by Suicide, Renewed by Resilience: how to move forward after being left
Mm.
behind.
Breathing that in for a moment. Wow, man. So I want to dive into some more of that, but like hearing about your experience in losing your dad from suicide, can you take me through? I'm curious what that experience was like of writing the book about how you've grown from that experience. What was that? What was the process like for you being able to pen that and then getting that out to the people?
Yeah, so I also, so how I got the idea to write a book, because my degree is in phys ed, sports management. So in college I went the sports route, and because that's what I loved. And then so there's nothing about me that said, hey, this guy's going to be an author, right? There's nothing about anything that I've done, but I get a chance to travel and do basketball camps for a company called Breakthrough Basketball, and I was driving out to Eastern Ohio. It's kind of a small town, and my intuition kicked in and it said right, and I was like, and it was just nagging voice that said, and then I got back like right, right, right. So over like the next year and a half, I wrestled with it, and I was like, I don't know how to write a book. And I told my wife, I was like, I think I'm supposed to write a book. She was like, you are? Okay, how do we do that? She was like, she was
Yeah.
supportive
How do
about it.
we?
She's
I
like,
love that.
well, she's like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? I was like, I don't know, but when things you feel like come to you naturally, things find a way to get done. And so
Yeah.
I spent the following summer writing. I wrote like 500 words a day, and it was and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in, 2 feet in, because there's no impact without vulnerability. And so I went in as like without with the reader. I want them to experience is what I went through firsthand. I like putting you in my shoes of what losing somebody to suicide looks like from my perspective. And I feel like there's a lot of emotions that are transferable to other traumas as well. And I just wanted the reader to really get a grasp of, how much it affects a person, especially a 17-year-old, having such a devastating experience like that.
Yeah, man. Damn, man. I mean, uh, wow. I'm thinking about that experience, and also I'm thinking about. I just wrote some notes down. A couple things really stuck out to me about as you were describing that experience. The first thing that stuck out was that you had the intuition to write, and you slept on it. Now I forget sleeping on it, but it was kind of like this rumbling. It sounds like where it's like, am I supposed to write a book? And then you wrote 500 pages a day, so you had the commitment. You stepped into the commitment, and then the thing that really was the cherry on top for me was when you said there's no impact without vulnerability. So with the impact without vulnerability, right? This also comes back to something you're saying about getting uncomfortable. I find for me is when I'm a guide for others, it's like helping them get to that space of getting to the next level, or in this case, like what you experienced, like being able to move into and through a loss or uncertainty or what's next, right? And I find that when I'm guiding people through that space of discomfort, it's a detachment of what was, right? A story, very much like you were talking about Storyteller, which we're gonna get to in a second, but like a story that they get to detach from. So I'm curious because I was reading a little bit about this course that you have. You sent me a link to this course that you're doing about the thought. It's the thought coaching, the thought certification that's coming up this month. You're going to be doing like every month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple processes in there. One was the say who was it?
Yeah, it says who method. Says who method.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was another one.
Release and replace.
The second. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about what those two are, and then also how those two can play into someone moving past their old story into something new?
Yeah, so the says who method is 7 questions that and then like I said, as we guide people through their thoughts, on
Yeah.
pinpointing where some of these limiting beliefs, negative thoughts are coming from, because we have 70,000 thoughts a day. And
Mm.
90% of those thoughts are repeated from the day before. And then on top of that,
Right.
if they're a negative thought, they're 40 to 70 times more powerful than a positive thought. So,
That's
you know,
bananas, isn't it? Holy
yeah, and
Nike.
it
Wow.
goes back to our origins of, our species as human beings. There was a time where we were prey, or we were like trying to find the what was going to try to eat me next situation, thousands of years ago. So we are
Yep.
wired genetically for negativity, but we have such an amazing mind and a rate of evolving that we can now flip our minds to positivity, and stay in a positive space. And when I mean positive, Paul, I don't mean like you have to walk around like you are happy-go-lucky, like everything's good all the time. That's not what positivity is.
Thank you.
Positivity is like going through something like, okay, this sucks. I don't like this, but I believe that there's a purpose behind this, and if I just walk in this space, if I can handle this suffering, if I can handle this pain, then something positive will eventually come from this. I don't know what. I mean, like, I lost my dad at 17. I wrote my book at 34. So it literally took half my lifetime to find a redemption project because of losing my dad to suicide, but it eventually got here. I think if you can have that
Mm.
faith of being optimistic, being positive, and allowing yourself to be sad some days, allowing yourself to grieve, allowing yourself to feel the emotions of sadness, the emotions of, frustration, and that's okay. But if you let it, but almost like they're clouds in the sky, you see them, you feel them, you let them go, but you don't hang on to them. They don't carry
Right.
over the next day. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I do. I think that so. I'm digging what you're saying there because it really is like what are the ways of moving past the story, right? Like, because you like I love what you said about like it's like a cloud, right? Do I hold on to this piece, or do I just let this move through? And I'm finding that that's a big piece, man, because you know I'm finding that there is that resistance, or there can be that resistance to letting go of the old story. Like, I'm gonna
Sure.
speak for myself. Like, I know, like, in the work that I like me doing my inner work, like you mentioned, it took you half a lifetime to get that redemption piece. Like, I know for me specifically in my past relationship with my former wife, it's taken me years to be cordial and be able to see the gem in the sadness of a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when you said
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, this like especially, and I really appreciate. I want to restate this because I want to make sure that the people hear what you said. Like, positivity is free of being like, yeah, everything is peaches and dandy tricks. No, it's like, okay, it's seeing what is, and then looking at what is, and then say, okay, well, there's something here, so let's find it.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that can help you benefit, and I think this is part of being able to move past the story, right, or move past the old story, and really find the gem in something, because I think that's something that most people fail to learn how to do, right?
Yeah.
They failed it. And so when you're saying with the who says who, when with these series of questions, what I'm hearing you say is that it's basically you're unearthing where this thought is, and then is that when the replacement comes in to switch it?
Yeah, so think like this, like these 7 questions help you pinpoint where these thoughts are coming from. And sometimes these thoughts aren't even your own originate. They're from somebody else, TV, relative, whatever. Put that in your mind.
Right.
You got emotionally involved in it, you believed it, and then now it's kind of stuck in your subconscious. Where, like, you think about this, think of it as like a gardener pulling out weeds from a garden. So that says who method, like you're taking those negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, and you're pulling them out. Like, you're just getting rid of them,
Mm-hmm.
because you need to create that space to allow positivity to plant. Because if you don't create the
Right.
space, it'll just deflect right off, and then you can be thinking positive, but if you're not feeling it, if you don't have the space to allow it to grow in within you from your heart, then it's just gonna be stuck in your head. You're gonna be in a track of, like as you're gonna keep going in a circle. You just kind of
Mm,
and spinning your wheels kind of thing. You have to again dig out that negativity, pull out that tough moment, that limiting belief from the root to open that space where you can allow something that so you can release and then replace it with something that
right,
a thought that you want to be emotionally involved with.
right. So you when you just said, you brought me back to another piece you said earlier about um you talked before about like people experiencing something like, say for example, sadness, and people being resistant to feeling the sadness. And then you just said feeling and accepting the feelings. And it's interesting because I think that when people are resistant to accepting the feelings, right? Like, especially this is men talk about. My thing is, I work with men. I find that more men are resistant to feeling, right? It's more like, I'm good. I'm good. Nah, yeah, a man could be crumbling inside, yet
Mm-hmm.
they're still gonna have that facade on, like, I'm fine. I'm okay. And I find that that's where the depression and the mental illness and the mental health issues start to arise, man.
Yeah.
And that's when the thoughts can come in about, I'm not worthy. I'm this. Like, my old story is like, I'm not good enough, or I don't matter. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I think that's a key component
Mm-hmm.
that you're talking
And
to.
the problem with that is it's our male ego. And a buddy of mine told me
Tell me about that.
a great acronym for ego is edging God out. That's what I mean. That's the enemy's biggest weapon is our ego. And it's like
Yep.
to think that we don't need it or to dismiss what we're feeling inside is ego. And I think that was one of my biggest drawbacks whenever I was 18 to 25. I externally I made everything look like things were all good, but man, internally I had a lot of things that I was really working through. Like, indecisiveness was a big one. And self confidence. Self image. All these things
Yep.
internally that I was like, you know, people on the outside like, oh yeah, he's got a good sense of humor. He's a funny guy. Jason's always doing good. He's going, but man, I would make a decision. I was like, wow, was that the right one? Should I have done that? And I would like follow that up and I would second guess myself and I would go down this spiral of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It's like, and
Yep.
it was all ego. I was nervous about making decisions, first of all. And then when I made them, I would second guess them. And now I realize that successful people, they trust their intuition. They're fully aware of who they are internally. So when they make a decision, they know something positive is going to come from it. It may not be right away, but it's based off of internal knowing that this is what I need to do next.
Damn. Notes again. Um, Damn, you just hit on so many things. Like when you said trust in the intuition, that last piece was really summed it up, man, because I think oh man, I want to collect my thoughts for a second, because I think a lot of this is that the trusting, right? And the ego gets us in this space of like, well, if this doesn't happen, then I look like a fool. And, or if I don't get this, then what are people going to think? It's
Yeah.
like this ego driven type of mentality. And successful cats, like, they can trust, they have that trust intuition, right? And they also recognize there's some risk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're free of staying in emotion. Like the successful people I've really gotten to know well, I noticed that they have an ability to move in and through a situation quickly.
Yeah.
Like if they take a loss, they're like, oh man, okay, I took a loss. Like, well, this did happen, so okay, what's the next opportunity? Rather
Yeah.
than like, oh, I don't know if I could do that, man. You saw what happened just there, right? Nah, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to take that risk again.
Yeah.
And then we're in the same spot.
It's calculated risk too. It's like they pre-planned it. They have purpose behind it, and they know that there's a high level of impact because of them moving into that space, and they know that they're going to help people with it. Like the most successful people that I've met are the biggest helpers. They are in it for, they're trying to change humanity to make it a better place. They're not worried about like how much money they're making. They're not worried about what kind of cars they drive, houses they live in. They're not worried about all the material, superficial stuff. They are literally
Right.
in it to help people make life more convenient, easier, better, more exciting, whatever it is, or help people even get people out from their stuck place of like they feel like there's no way out, kind of thing. You and I talked about
Right.
how do we close the gap yesterday. Um,
Yeah, man.
and I think, where you provide space for people when they look back in their life, like it was, I have what I have and I succeeded because of the decisions and the choices I made, not because of some systemic, you know, um, situation. It's because of I had
Right.
every opportunity given to me, and it was my choice to take that opportunity and run with it, or it was my choice to not do anything.
Right. And I hear ownership in that too, though. There's, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, again, the very same situation we started talking about yesterday. And you and I have referred a couple of times to this conversation yesterday. So unfortunately, for those that are listening right now, you all weren't in on it. So ha ha. But no, seriously, like what we were talking about yesterday is more coaching. All right. And what Jason said, closing that gap. And to give a context, we were talking about what are the ways to get someone to that next level, right? And I was talking about, okay, if I say if someone's looking to save money and they're not saving anything, we could say, okay, I'm going to get you to save $200 a month, right? And Jason was saying, well, listen, to close that gap, it may have to be less because it's more about training behaviors, right? Because some people say, and this is interesting. The more I thought about this, like some people, that $200 piece, that'll be a challenge, right? And I see that as like the challenge to the people that trust intuition. They may get the $200, they may get more, they may get less, yet they still understand that it's going to lead to something bigger, right? And then the people that see that as like, whoa, that's too daunting, they may lose what is really behind it of building the habit, right? Building the habit of what it means to be successful, what it means to thrive, what it means to be abundant. So hearing that, Jason, like with your experience and what you've been doing, what are some of the key themes you see in supporting people in creating different habits to move into that place that they lose and into a place where they gain?
I think it's first you just have to be real honest with yourself. Like you have to be real honest about your habits yourself and really self-reflect. And if you're willing to do that and say, hey, I acknowledge this is where I'm at. I acknowledge these are the areas I need help in. Like for example, if it's saving money, like, hey, you know what? I like to spend. And I don't save very much. Like, okay, hey, that's an acknowledgement. All right. So, next month we're gonna practice, let's save $5. You put $5 in a savings account. Next month after that, we're going to double that. We're going to save $10. You've just doubled your savings because again, you and I talked about it's the words that we say. You say, hey, I just doubled my savings. It doesn't matter how much you saved, you still doubled it. Technically, your subconscious mind doesn't know. Like doesn't know numbers per se. Numbers are all a perception. Doesn't matter if it's $10 or
Right.
$10,000. You still doubled what you saved. And I think it's also willing to put off the good for the great. Like it's delayed gratification. We live in such a popcorn society where everybody wants everything right now. They want the best of the best right now, but they're not willing to wait. They're not willing to wait. And so they settle for good
Yep.
when they could have great if they would just wait a year and a half, or maybe 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. But if I told you that there was $10 million waiting in 5 years for you, and all you had to do was these certain exercises, would you wait out the 5 years? Would you be willing to do that, to put off something else and that's not to be specific on anything, but just giving you a heads up. If you have a great idea and let's say maybe it fails or maybe you just need to tweak something, but there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow because you can see this help people. Like, would
Right.
you stay after it? And I
Right.
would say, yeah, I would, but we don't have that that foresight to see like, oh man, okay, I see the good that this could have in people, so I'm gonna
Right.
stick with this. Like that's why I got into thought coaching, because
Mm.
I was like, I see what's ahead with this, because this is more specific. This gets people on a thought level. I don't have to tell them to do anything. I just have to tell them to think differently. If I can get you to think
Right.
differently, I can get you. Then you're gonna act differently on your own. When you act differently, you're gonna get better results, and you're gonna take ownership, and you're gonna be so excited because you feel like you're the one that is the captain of your own ship, and that you're not relying
Yep.
upon me to tell you what to do all the
Exactly. Listen, I think this is the trend I see going from coaching into guidance, right? Because it's very similar to what we were discussing yesterday too, is about helping people to find their way rather than, hey, okay, these are these different steps I'm going to give you. Like it's uniform for everyone to follow and then everyone to get the same success. No. That's why I really appreciate what you're doing with like asking these questions and having people explore themselves, man. Because listen, I don't know how many times. Well, what other than when you're doing this, when do we get taught things like this?
Never.
Right.
Never.
It's bananas. It's so
Yeah.
it's and why I say this, right? Is people expect, like you just said, people expect things to just drop, right? Now it's like, and it's right. I think it's a society now where it's like, well, I want this now. Give it to me. Jeeves, I want some lemonade. Here it is. Rather than saying, well, okay, I want to make some authentic lemonade. I'm going to grow a lemon tree. That may take a year. That's going to take something. But you know what, though? Rather than me going to buy lemonade, I take that year and I got a constant source of lemons. I can make my own lemonade whenever the hell I want to.
But
right?
are you waiting? Are
like,
you willing to wait the year, though? Are you willing to wait?
There it is, man. Are you willing to wait? And for I look at it as like, are you willing to wait? And also, am I willing to be patient and present? It's part of the journey, right? The journey is like, really is the gold. Really, it's like, well, shoot, man, I became this. Like we talk about, like someone saying, well, I don't save any money, but the next month, shoot, you save $10. You save $10 more than you. Well, it's only $10, but and it's $10 you save. That's just, and I say this because it's like, the patience and presence is key, because it's also about that I'm finding, and I sense this with you as well. It's about getting people to acknowledge the small wins that lead to the bigger goal, rather than being like, well, I only got this. I only did this. Like, and where were you last month?
Yeah.
You had zilch. Now you got $10. Next month you put in another $5. You got 15. Whatever it is, celebrating those things, because really it's about building the habits, man. And that's like a lot of people I think are lacking patience, myself included in times, man.
Yeah, I know. It's
Presence
not. I'm not saying it's like easy that you just start doing it like, oh man. But the more you make it
true.
a behavior, like, or you automate things. Like for example, my wife and I, we automate our savings every month. Like, it just goes. Like we don't even look at it. We don't even pay. Like it just goes without us even thinking about like putting it in a Roth IRA or putting it in a mutual fund or whatever. Like we don't do it manually. It's just something that we automate. And it's things like that where, if you automate something, you don't even realize it's happening. Like you don't even think about it. Like, okay, cool. There it goes. All right, now I got to figure out, hey, what's my bottom line after I automate this? Like paying yourself first kind of thing, And it's I do this with my 4-year-old son a lot. Like he'll want something right now. Like it's natural for us to want something right now. Like, oh, but I know you want a sucker right now, but just not yet. Because we gotta drive home right now, and if you're eating a sucker and you start choking on it, and I gotta pull over to do the Heimlich on you, that's gonna be a really tough situation because you're in a car seat. And so I'm like, listen, like if you could just wait till we get home, and just the answer is not yet. And at first he was like, I want, like, he threw his 4-year-old temper tantrums, that kind of stuff, but now I was like, hey man, aren't you glad you waited? Now you have your sucker, and then you can just eat it at home, and it's
Chill.
all good, man. Aren't you glad you
Right.
waited? He was like, yeah, I'm glad I have it now. I was like, see, just sometimes the answer is not ever no per se. It's just not yet.
Right. Right. Oh, dude, spot on, man. And and as you're talking, I'm remembering you work with athletes. So I'm curious with your experience of what you've been doing. Do you see a difference in how athletes uh, address what we're talking, like as far as like the goals and changing habits? Do you see a difference in how they approach that compared to someone that's free of that's other than an athlete?
Well, the great thing about athletics is you have all your stats and everything right in front of you. Everything is out in the open. Whenever you miss a jumper, or whenever you slice like on a golf swing, whenever you slice it or hook it, you get instant feedback. And so
Right.
you can kind of you know digress or think about like, what could I have done differently the next time to get a better result. So I think that's where athletics is so like, that's where a lot of people with athletes, they're used to getting constant feedback, and the great athletes are the best listeners too, because they want that feedback because they want to get better. That's what makes the great ones
Right.
great, is their humility to be aware of what their weaknesses are and what their strengths are, and but they're never satisfied. They're
Mm,
excited about their progress, but they're never satisfied. You know, um,
yeah.
and so I think that's the key there, is like, since you get such quick feedback on things, like you lost, you won, you scored 25 points, you scored 2 points, you can always go back and look at film and say, well, I wonder why that happened. Especially at least on the pro and the high college level, even high school level,
Right.
everything gets filmed now. So you can see everything in front of you, your flaws, what you did great. So it's always instant feedback in athletics.
Right. Mm. So they have. So what? So for the people, for the men listening, or for people listening, would you suggest that there's some sort of, like, as they're learning to change or they want to shift habits, would you suggest that there be some sort of, they create some sort of metric or align to some sort of metric to get feedback on their progression? Or how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a mentor is somebody that is, you know, worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. Like I've had mentors that have come to my life naturally. I've invested in mentors. I've done both ways, um,
Yeah.
and 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 I'm glad that I did that, no matter what, because everybody has a personal currency. Whether maybe you have great connections with people, maybe you're financially well off, maybe it's you own a business, or you can provide a great service or something. But it's like, what can I give if I want to learn from somebody that's where I want to be, but they're there already. What can I give in a situation that's going to help me stand out and notice me, so I can get mentored by the right people? Because you can get mentors. Everybody has opinions. They're going to tell you what to do, but get advice from people that are where you want to go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Mm,
not gonna go get advice from my neighbor who's, maybe they're in landscaping, but I want to become a college basketball coach. Like, they're gonna tell you what they think, but it's not gonna be worth their opinion's not gonna be worth very much, because they don't know. Like, it's like we ask people what
mm,
they think, but they don't. They're like you. They don't know. So I think it's key,
right.
like finding those people. And with YouTube, like you can almost don't have to necessarily seek them out. You can just watch what they do, or you can watch videos, because
Mm,
all the most successful people have a YouTube channel. They have Instagram. They have social media. They have LinkedIn.
right.
And then just mimic their behavior. Just but make it personalized to yourself at the same time. But I think that's one thing you can do, is find mentors, and some of the people that I consider mentors, I've never met, but I just
Gotcha.
love what they do. I love what they've done based off of the results
Yep.
they're getting.
So it's interesting because what you said, um, get advice or from those that are where I want to go. And as you said that, I'm thinking of an exercise I do when I'm working with men. Is I ask them when we were working on language, I ask, what do you want? And the majority of the time, it starts off with, I don't want. Well, I don't want someone that is flaky. I don't want someone that is blah, blah, blah. And what I found out with language is that, like, when we use this not configuration, like I don't want, it's actually, the brain is free of processing not, so it actually gives us what we don't want.
Right. You're 100% spot on there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's bananas. And it's wild because, like, finding the mentor is really, again, about the self-work, right? Like, what do I want to go into? What do I want to move into? And that, in my judgment, is just as important as going to get the mentor, right? You know, it's figuring out, what do I want? And in that space, that's like a whole new level, man. That I think a lot of people fail to recognize.
You know, for example, my mentor, his name is Robert Pascuzzi, and he wrote a novel called The Ravine, and it's getting ready to come out as a movie. But he didn't have any movie experience. He's not a movie, but now and this has been like a 10-year project because he was willing to do what it took to get this going. And I invested in it. I was like, hey man, I want you to teach me because I have a book now. I think maybe one day I want to turn it into a movie. And so I went through a process called Thinking into Results with him. Him and his wife were, they taught you about how your mind works. They taught you about paradigms. They taught you about how to develop a mastermind. There's like 12 weeks and it's like 6 months of invested time and money that I put in, but it was what I needed. And it was what I wanted to do. So I was like, man, this is, I want what he has. I want, whether it's his mentality, whether it's his lifestyle. He has he's raising 3 boys. I have 2 boys. What did he do to get his kids to where they're at, where they're going to be successful? I just want to learn from him. I just want to be in the same spaces. So and then there's other guys where, like, a basketball coaching mentor of mine who's actually his brother-in-law. I just built a relationship on him, trust. Like, every time he asked me to do something, I made sure I did it very well. Because that way, like, he was impressed by my work, and he would be willing to spend more time with me because he saw the quality of work that I'm willing to do or willing to learn. So there's 2 examples of just finding the right people. And even though I haven't invested any money per se in one of them, I invested quality of work. You're always investing in something.
Right.
And that's what people fail to realize. Everybody thinks it's all money based. Like, like, you can still invest your time. Your personal currency doesn't have to be money. It can be your quality of work. It can be who you know. It can be anything. Like, there's other avenues. You just gotta get creative.
Yeah, man. Jason, dude, I swear to goodness, if this thing was like a portal, I would come in and hug you or give you a high five, because you just hit it, man. The perception, the story we tell ourselves is that, and I'm speaking for everybody. I'm gonna speak for myself. Like, when I'm in those spaces, the story I tell myself is like, oh, I gotta offer them money. And it's like, I'm thinking that's the only, and really what I say to myself in those moments is like, I'm only worth, like, it's only about money for me. Whereas, like, other commodities are my time, my energy, my space, my energetic space that I hold, my attention, my support, my sharing. Well, there's all these different commodities. And when people start to think like, oh, well, I got to have this amount of money, it's like, well, hold up. Who says this? Mm-hmm. Like, what is that? Like, who says that has to be that way? And I think it's important for people to, like, I think that's where people get a lot of the boxes they put themselves in too. It's like, well, if I'm gonna work with them, it's like putting someone on a pedestal almost. Like, when I say that, and for people listening, like there's times I put people on a pedestal too, right? And I want to be clear, and this is free of judgment. My thing, and I think, Jason, I'm free of speaking for you. I think this is something that you're trying to relate to, is that, there are people out there that want to help and support us when we know what we want. There's an energetic exchange that can come about when we get intentional with where we want to go. Just like we talked before about your different poles. When we can get intentional with where we want to go, the guides will open up for us. And the thing is that what I've found in those spaces is that a lot of times when I go check or I go find a guide, I'm contributing to them in ways that they didn't know that they needed help with. So to give a perfect example, one of my coaches that helped me out with my language and words, my man John Tompkins, he's the godfather of language for me. Like me, it was about my time, right? And like, what can I offer him? So for me, it was teaching him how to use Zoom, right? Because now he's an older man, so like he didn't have that practice. Like as he has patience for me and teaching me about words every week, we hop on my Zoom call, and now I'm teaching him how to use Zoom. So now he's got his Zoom up, he's doing clients on Zoom, right? He's still making revenue, right? And listen, we have that time. So it's an example, like there was no monetary exchange. However, there was an exchange of resources. John had a knowledge and I had a knowledge. We're able to support each other and help each other out. And I think that's important for people to listen and hear, especially as we start to shift our thoughts and we start to go beyond the story, man. We start to go beyond our story.
And
listen,
real quick, I want you to think about this for just let this sit for a little bit. But it's 3 words. It's 3 simple words. Helpers get helped. So what I mean by that is if you give first, if you offer help first, it may not be directly from the person that you help, but the way God's universe is created, givers gain. So if you're open and willing to give, gratefully give, and then humbly receive. So if you are in a space of giving first, then be open to whatever is received after that. I met Scott Mason, our mutual friend, because he was a friend of a guy that I had met, and I've been we've been building a relationship. He's like, hey, I got somebody you should know. I really appreciate what you're doing with helping me with kind of what I'm going through. It's like, yeah, it should be great. And then with Scott, I was like, hey man, Scott, you should get to know these 5 people. And then this time it came directly from Scott, and then Scott was like, hey, you need to go meet Paul. I love what you're doing. So all of us have a backwards. We always think like, what can I get? What can I get?
Right.
And then you try to get something, but then you get stuck. Like you got to come from a place of giving first, and then just allowing the good that you're giving to come back to you and receive what comes from that. Because if you give him first, then just be like, hey man, I'm cool with receiving because I've done the work of giving first.
Right, man, dude. It's man. To add to what you're saying, first of all, helpers get help. That's freaking givers gain. That's gold. I think that's going to be one of our video clips, by the way. Just saying. Damn, man. And as I said that, I lost my thought, but that's all right. I'll get it back. But I think it's what you just said is so huge because it's an energetic of being of service. Like I talked about this in a past podcast. The element of being of service is so, in my judgment, I think it's needed now because that space of, hey, who can I help or who can I be of service to is a sense of community and trust, Jason. It's being able to see into an unknown and being free of attachment to receiving anything back. Because some people can be in this thing where it's like, well, I gave, and that kind of comes back to this the patience and presence. Some people can say, well, like, I gave 2 weeks ago. Where's my return? Like, whoa, so you gave to get rather than to give.
Well, then the more you give too, the faster you receive though at the same time. And don't keep score. Like I never keep score. Like if I send somebody like, hey, you need to know 5 people, I don't expect them to send me 5 people back. I don't care if they do or not. Because I know like at some point it might come from a different source that I need to be open to. And if you expect it to come from one person, you're limiting God's power, because maybe he has somebody else that's going to give you something better than what that person that you expect somebody to get something back from can give you anyways.
Dude, can you say that again, please? I think for the people in the back, man. Shoot, bro, that was hitting right there, man. Dude, that, man. Listen, Jason, you brother, I'm excited. Like I said yesterday, I'm excited that individuals get to learn from you, right? And individuals get to experience your energy. I'm happy that you're on this podcast so people can get to hear more about you, your insight. Before we start to wrap this up, man, I want to, because you have some powerful stuff going on right now, bro. Yo, King, you got this certification coming up, right? I'm gonna look on this email, because like when you send me stuff, I was like, dude, he's got some stuff rocking right now. Like, hold up, where's the email, man?
I think I sent it to you via text. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you got so a couple things, right? First of all, if you could talk about the athlete's 24-week essential, pivotal, because I know a lot of our listeners are dealing with athletes. And then if you could talk about the thought coach certification for post-traumatic growth, I would appreciate that, because I know I want to be in the thought coach one. So for the people that are listening, if you could share, that'd be great.
So 4D athletes is like, it stands for 4-dimensional athlete, and that's like, it's designed to help 12 to 20-year-old kids in sports, athletes, understand who they are through essential life skills. Essential life skills such as achieving and setting the right kind of goals, decision making, gratitude, relationships, how your mind works. We get into things like different strategies on like understanding like how like you can make the most of your mind, and how you can control your mind instead of your mind controlling you. And even getting into stuff like a farmer's mentality of building habits. That's what our 1 week free is. A demo week is. It's how to build great habits. That's what we want to give to people. Like, so you can kind of see what it's like. And our goal with this is for parents, for coaches, and for athletes to all be learning the same things together through an online format that takes 10 to 12 minutes a day. Doesn't take that much time, but you open so many opportunities to talk to teenagers, to talk to young adults about subjects that you never thought that you would talk about. And it's 24, like I said, it's 24 weeks of content, and it's 5 micro lessons a week with a reflection day and a review day. So there's 7 days, so like we really believe in our mission is to transform 100 million athletes through sports by teaching essential life skills. And so that's what we're on a mission to do, man. And we just believe this will change a generation, because if we create a brighter future, it's only going to help us as we get older. If the young people coming up we know they're going to be smarter, we know they're going to be more tech savvy, but do they have the life skills to help them be successful in whatever they do professionally? Because we know they're going to do something professionally. And 1% of 1% of them will do it in sports. 99% of them will be doing it in something else. That's the reality. That's the numbers. Numbers don't lie. Man.
That's right. That's right. Numbers don't lie, man.
But
numbers don't lie.
And then with the thought coaching. Go ahead.
Yeah, please. Well, I'm just thinking like what you're doing is great for the athletes on the field, and is great for them in the field of life. So I appreciate what you said there. I mean, I think that's huge, because listen, we talked about this yesterday. Like 1% of 1% is going to get paid to play a professional sport. What happens with the other people, right? What happens with the other athletes?
They get paid to be in sports. Like you could be a coach, you could be work in the front office, whatever, be a broadcaster. There's tons of ways you can get paid in sports. But actually playing them, actually being a participant in them, man, that's a small number, man, to be honest, But but that doesn't mean you shouldn't dream, though. I think you should definitely dream.
Right.
and believe that you can. I think because somebody's got to play. Um, but I just think that we just think that if you have the essential life skills mastered whenever you get 18, 19, 20 years old, the world of opportunities just opens for you, and it's transforming kids and transformation means like you don't fall back into old ways. Like you are a new person because you've gone through this, and you don't you don't want to be who you were, because what you are now is so much better.
Dude, I love it, man. Now tell us a little bit about the post-traumatic growth course. The thought.
So the thought coaching is with Ora Nadrich's Institute for Transformational Thinking. And so what I'm doing is a facilitator. So as you go through the 4-week course, I help you facilitate the material. I help you understand how to be a thought coach, a thought guide. And my 2 areas of expertise are post-traumatic growth and athletics. So let's say you're a coach and you want to learn how to get in the mind of athletes. This will also work for that. And I've also added some other tips and tricks too, as well, like asking empowering why and what questions. Things like and you're like, hey, what are those? I'm like, well, you got to sign up to check it out.
Right.
And then also like with this group of people, whoever signs up, we're going to do a mastermind group. It's $248, I think, but my goal is to give you $2,500 worth of value, meaning like connections you make, strategies you do, like you're like any kind of digital paperwork you might need to set yourself up for success. That's all included in there to help you. There's meditations in there as well. There's so much value in there that investing $250, you have a chance to transform people's lives through their thoughts. And again, my specialty is post-traumatic growth in sports. A buddy of mine, he's helping people that want to help that want to coach people on addictions and overcoming addictions, because that's something that he worked through. So there's different specialties that people are working with, not just post-traumatic growth, not just sports, but she's really laying out these other people as well and getting more niched, getting more specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Dude, I'm excited. I'm excited to take this course in September, man. August is packed. I'm excited to take this course in September because of what you're saying. I'm like, this is, I think this is something great to learn. And I like the thought of connections and looking through the programs. Like, I like what you're putting together there. Where do people get in contact with you and to register for these things, man?
I can send you the link, and then if you don't mind putting on the show notes, for the
Sure, absolutely.
Things. And then LinkedIn is where I'm most active, because I believe LinkedIn is one of the best platforms as far as like finding people who are on purpose and getting through the trash of other social media.
Good call.
I mean, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just to put positive content out there, because there's got to be some opposites. Like, people just go on social media just to rant most of the time, especially Facebook. But I'm just gonna post positive things out there and then just ignore the rest, And whoever interacts with me, cool, that's fine. That means we resonate. If you don't, good, because then that means I don't have to worry about messing with you anyways, So don't waste my time, right?
Yeah, I love it, man. Yo, keep that energy over there, man. Keep it over there.
Yeah, I don't have
time. Vibe high, man. Yeah, right. Listen, vibe high, dude. Like, it's a lesson I'm learning and continue to practice. Listen, and this is another gem from this podcast, is check in on your energy. If you're in a space where people are draining your shit, draining your energy, move them to the side. Step your game up, man. Step your game up. And there's plenty of ways. Jason gave some ways here, whether you're an athlete or someone that works with athletes. I'm going to do this course because with what I'm doing, I think it's going to fit right in. It's going to fit like a perfect puzzle piece into helping people with their words and language. Jason, man, this has been huge, dude. I really appreciate you taking this time with me today. And I'm curious, man, with everything that we've gone over today, I feel like we covered a lot in what you're doing. Is there something that you wanted to express or get across today to the people that are listening to this podcast that we have yet to cover that you want to cover now?
I think, for people that maybe might be in a funk right now, or you might be like, struggling with some things, you tend to look at lack. You tend to look at, all the things going wrong. And I think the best way to get out of that is ask yourself, what can I give somebody else? What can I give? And that might be as simple as like smiling at somebody in your family, or sending like a positive text message to a friend of yours maybe you haven't seen in a while. Or writing, even like going old school and writing a friend a letter and saying, hey man, wanted to reach out, see how you were doing, do it old school. Just like think of something
old school letter. Yikes.
Yeah. Or email, or whatever, or a message.
Letter's good, man. Go letter. That's a good look right there.
I just think there's like, what can you give? Whenever I get stuck in a rut, I'm like, okay, man, I think I'm just in myself right now. I'm in my own feelings right now, which is fine. But the best way I can get out of it is by giving something to somebody else. Giving, maybe it's making dinner for my family. Maybe it's and getting emotionally involved with like them being excited about whatever it is I'm making, because it was really good or whatever. And I think that's the best way to get out of a funk is just trying to find ways you can give to somebody else, and them, reaping the benefits of you being a giver.
Damn, brother. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I am grateful for this space because, one of the reasons I do this podcast is to connect with other men that are visionaries, that are men of service, and you fit that to the tip top, man. I'm happy that we're connected, man. I'm excited of what's possible with this connection going forward. And I'm excited for you, for what you got going on, man, because I know whoever's going to be taking your courses, it's going to light them up. I'm also grateful I did this outside because I got my vitamin D fix for the hour. Hallelujah. I don't even know if people are going to be able to see me on this. I'll take a look at the at the replay, and it's all good, man. So wrapping up, everyone that's listening, thank you for tuning in to the Men Talk About podcast. This podcast is about men and those honing and harnessing their masculine energy. This is about development. This is about inner work. This is about education. There's a lot of ways that we can educate ourselves, and this is about what are we giving, right? What's the information that we're giving? We take this time, we take this opportunity to give to you because we want to see the best for you. We want to see you in the highest form that you could be. So thank you for listening. You like what this is, share with friends. Check out the show notes so you can register for Jason's class. And be well, be well, be well. Thank you, everyone. Jason, any last words before we wrap up, man?
Hey, man, just do your best every day and be happy with that, because you can only do with what you have. So just try to get 1% better every day.
What's up, man? It's a blessing. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you. Maybe we'll have a part 2, man.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Man.
All right,
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, brother.